be wonderful for touring. We'll see what happens after a week. And as a result of the winter rains, everything is green. And all of the wildflowers are coming up now. And all of the winter crops are growing. The country's green. The orchards are budding. It's really very, very beautiful. Okay, so we are going to the Rural Beach next.
All right, leaving Tel Aviv today and headed out to Tiberias tonight. Going to, I'm going to mispronounce this, but Caesarea. But this is the balcony view from Joppa, the ancient shipping yards where Jonah left. Probably right over there. Maybe. We got in late, so we didn't get to do the tour. But, alright, there's already a ship out there in the Mediterranean Sea. So we will go from there, guys. There is Tel Aviv. You can see the hills a lot better during the day. As the sun comes in over Jerusalem. It's 9:45 at night. And so, off to exploring today.
You get tired of it? The lost Oh, mine is, it's these things right here.
Gabby's is getting darker. Mine's like that. Mine was Gabby's our age. I started
No, you're looking at some of you are looking at
All right, well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Have you adjusted to the time? Okay. I thought I'd begin. How many know the old hymn, Love Lifted Me? Yeah, I found an obscure verse that you might not know. I was sinking deep in sleep with a great rumbling snore.
He baptized Cornelius. Cornelius was the first convert, Gentile convert to Christianity. What a joy. Well, are you ready to worship today? How many of you brought your hymn books? Yeah.
Existing in worlds above, now honored and given to all. O fountain of beauty eternal, the Father, the Spirit, the Son.
as we've had. Hope you enjoy the rest of the day. We'll see everyone together for dinner tonight. As you're coming off these steps, be very, very careful because just about every step is a different height.
Guys, Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel to our right extends all the way up to the city of Haifa. If you look at your maps, you'll see a half-moon shape along the coast in northern Israel. Alright, you'll notice that the coast of northern Israel looks like a half-moon. Alright, like a crescent moon in the Mediterranean Sea. Haifa is at the northern edge, right before that crescent moon heads to the right and up to the north, okay? Not to confuse you, but you can see just how long Mount Carmel is on your map as well as to the right. You can see how it extends all the way to the north. We are driving along that coastal plain, the plain of the coast, the sandier region of Mesopotamia. Am I bringing back 6th grade world history now? Mesopotamia, meaning it's a Greek term referring to the land between the two rivers, the Tigris River and the Euphrates River. This land today is known as Syria and Iraq. Syria and Iraq. This is home to the Assyrians, mentioned in our biblical context, as well as the Babylonians. This is the land of Babylon. Babylon and Egypt were the two great empires. Two great empires, and of course, they fought each other. Think of it like the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union. Two great empires fighting each other. And of course, they would fight each other not in their own land, but in between. Hence, giving Israel a very important strategic point on the globe. Connecting these two great empires is Israel right in the middle. This tiny sliver of land right in the middle of the Nile, the land of Egypt, and Mesopotamia in the northeast. And connecting these two great empires through the land of Israel is the Via Maris. It is the first highway of the ancient world. And we're coming out to the left, and you can see a green barren hill in front of the bus. Can you guys see that hill in front of the bus? Right after the city ends on our right, there's a green hill with a sloped ridge in front of the bus. This is known as the ancient city of Yokneam. Yokneam, try and pronounce it. Good luck. Yokneam. Actually, we're in the modern city of Yokneam now. Okay, but the ancient city of Yokneam is this barren hill. This barren hill is known as a tell. A tell. This is an archaeological mound of history. An archaeological mound of history. You can see it now clearly on our right. Over 4,000 years of history buried within this little mountain here to our right. The slope of this little hill was built by mankind, throughout history as part of the defensive mechanism of the city itself. So on top of this hill we would have had a stone wall, and on top of the stone wall we would have had a mud brick wall. It's created a layer cake of history. Who's made a layer cake before? I've tried too many times. It ends up looking like a chocolate cake every time. Okay, it all just molds in together like a marble. These slopes were built on purpose for defense. And we'll talk about that defense later on. The Jezreel Valley. The Jezreel Valley. This is one of Israel's largest valleys in terms of agricultural production. During antiquity, during the time of Jesus and before, refer to that as antiquity. This was Israel's largest agricultural producing region in the entire country. This was Israel's largest agricultural producing region in the whole country. You can see almond trees to our right, the beautiful blossoms, the almond blossoms to our left. Did I say right? I meant left, excuse me. Okay, even today, the Jezreel Valley is
cactus. Carrot to the right. One of the ancient staircases to the entrance of Megiddo. Up the same slope you guys just climbed, but 3,000 years ago they made a staircase. Why we can't go up the staircase today, I don't know. No, I'm kidding. We don't want to trample over this antiquity. And this was actually revealed to us in the last year. So if you'd been here before, within the last 2 years, you may not have seen this part of the archaeology. Really, really fascinating. You'll also notice that the stairs, part of the stairs, have hewn stone on it. Hewn stone refers to stone that's been cut, used tools to make it with a side, a flat side to it, okay? We're going to see a lot of this as we walk through the walls here to the left. You guys see the walls here? Put modern concrete buttresses right here, hold up to the ancient city of Megiddo. After we've excavated the site started to crumble. Alright, so this is one of the techniques that we're using today to help keep the site from falling in on itself. Guys, when you make your way up to the top, slowly, you'll realize that we'll actually have reached the most important part of an ancient city. The most important part of an ancient city is the gatehouse. I'm emphasizing these two words, gatehouse. Gate meaning the entrance, and that it's built like a house, or very heavily fortified.
White dot. It's going far away from us now. Or barely.
vague question.
You can see Nazareth now, the front left of the bus. It is the city which grows on top of the mountain, unlike the city to our right, which is growing up onto the hill. You can see how the city here is growing onto the mountain, and this city of Nazareth was always on top of the Galilean ridge. It never came down into the valley. Guys, Nazareth, what does that mean? What does it mean to us? It's not a rhetorical question. You can say out loud. It's the hometown of Jesus, right? Yes. Guys, you can see Mount Carmel to our left, just to reference where we are. Okay? Guys, Nazareth is here on Mount Precipice, soon to be on our right. You can see it here in the front of the bus, on the right, above the quarry. Guys, once again, across the valley, directly to our right, you can see the lonely mountain, Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor, the traditional site of the Transfiguration of Jesus. Mount Tabor. Guys, we're right in the middle of the... Yes? Great. Then good. Because Arab actually refers to the culture and the people and the language that they speak. That they came from Arabia, and they speak Arabic, okay? But many of them have come to faith. Many of them have come to faith and become believers. Most of them are Catholic today, but they still have faith. They're still Christian, all right? But culturally, they still identify to their parents, to their parents' parents, and to their lineage. They still eat the same foods that their grandparents ate. Therefore, they are still considered an Arab culture, okay? And they live here in Nazareth. Today, despite this difference, 70% Muslim, 30% Christian, it is actually considered a Christian city. And what I mean by that is that this city, despite being in the land of Israel, they are Israelis here, just like the other Arab village we passed earlier. These people are Israeli as well, but you'll notice that on the Sabbath day, for Jews, that is on Friday evening until Saturday evening, basically all day Saturday. That is the Sabbath day, that is Shabbat. But in Christianity, the Sabbath day is when? Sunday. On Sunday. So here in the land of Israel, the law of the land is a Jewish law. However, we honor, basically, we have freedom of religion here in Israel. So you'll notice that the city of Nazareth shuts down on Sunday and not on Saturday. And that is because of the Christian minority here. They are 30%. However, for some reason, and I don't know why, the municipality of Nazareth is always elected as a Christian majority. So that tells us that the Muslims living here also vote for Christians in the government as well. Okay? And you can see restaurants. If you can tell the difference between Hebrew and Arabic, you can see a sign here on the right, a coffee shop here, written in Arabic. You can see Hebrew and Arabic on this restaurant here. Okay? Many people like to come to Nazareth. Israelis are Arabs, Jews, and Christians alike. We do have a minority religion in Israel known as the Druze, D-R-U-Z-E. We'll talk about them later this afternoon. Welcome to Nazareth, everyone. In a few moments, we'll be getting off the bus. Please bring with you...
Is that what the kids are calling it these days? Why are you asking me?
Okay, there you have it.
This is the sheepfold where normally we would only keep the sheep in at night time for their own protection. Because normally they'd be out grazing on the hills of Nazareth, eating grass and plants off the uncultivated land. And they just come in here at night time. Now during the summer, when it doesn't rain for 4 or 5 months, everything goes brown, the sheep have eaten everything. I've got to take my sheep a lot further away to find pasture. I can't get back here at night, so I have to create a temporary sheepfold wherever we're grazing.
This is where they crush the grapes, and you probably notice the terraces above us. So just imagine, it would take a family about a year of work just to build about a 1 dun, a quarter of an acre of terrace land farming, and that would actually involve a lot of work. So first we have to cut steps into the natural bedrock, and then fill them up with different layers of soil, 1 donkey load at a time, build a retaining wall, and the layers inside the terraces, usually you have fertile soil on the top and bottom. In between, you would have crushed limestone. So this was just like a sealant. But my question is, why would you use sandals when you crush the grapes?
Because of what you stepped in before you got there.
Oh yeah, that's right. You don't want to step in something you're going to get in, right? You wouldn't want to drink that. True. And also, what do we have inside the grapes?
Seeds.
Have you tasted them? Very bitter, right? So the last thing you want to do is use something like sandals or flat, hard. It'd be really easy to crush the seeds, and then the juice and the wine you ferment later would be brewed. Just have a bitter taste. Coming in, so pretty big roof. Joe's carpentry, unfortunately, is really small, but it's hard to speak enough for everybody. But we still have to squeeze in, so try. I'm gonna go all the way in. As you can see, Joseph is our local carpenter, and he is working with wood. And is this something carpenters would do back then too? You sure? Right? Jesus was a carpenter. Remember, he himself, you know, we would have livestock and different things he could cook. It would be larger itself, and you'd have more bedrooms, and you have upper rooms for reclining. The most important thing, you know, that a wealthy family could afford, of course, is a source of water. So typically they would have also cisterns, man-made well with. Keep coming in, folks, keep coming in. Man on the right side, and on the left side. So also coming in, right, you can see any physical lines throughout the courtyard, men and women's side. That's what it was. The first century synagogues were not religious places of gathering. You know, today if you're going
them into southern Lebanon without detection. So they are part of these special forces units, and they volunteer for it. They love it, and you'll often hear about many officers, Druze officers, in the army. All right, so we love our Druze, and they love us. You'll see their national flag as a nation. They have an identity as a nation, as a religion. It is a multicolored, striped flag. You may see it hanging on their doorposts. Their language, they are actually considered Arab as well. Culture and identity, they are also considered Arab, but they are not Christian nor Muslim, they are Druze. We will see them again when we get to the Golan Heights. Guys, we're now going back in time. We're going back in time to the time of First Kings, to the time of Elijah, to the time of King Ahab, the kingdom of Israel. The people here in the north.
No, I'm just kidding. Pilgrimage. Pilgrimage. I know, it just didn't come out.
Oh, let me just read to you the thing of the fire. It's not from the Old Testament, it's from the book of Ben Sirach.
The book of what?
Yes,
that's a larger version.
It's one of the books that were not canonized, but I think they appear in the maybe
too much. There's too many potential phrases. Yeah, it's a close to it. I think it's a. It requires. It's a high level 8 and 9 environment, and
West. The West.
Everywhere
Sunsets
you
in
are,
the
the
West,
sunsets.
all around the world. Even in Australia? Yes, even in Australia. Come up to the top and you look towards the setting sun to the west, you can see the reflection of the sun in the Mediterranean. You can understand exactly where we are. You guys give me I'm on now. I'm on. There's that cloud moving right on the view.
Alright, what?
I'm sorry.
Taking small angles.
Guys, come up here and you can see to the
No, I don't
right.
think the first one is me.
The west. Sun is setting in the west, right? See the reflection of the sun. Mediterranean Sea. The wind coming from the west, bringing that moisture with the clouds, and it's going to rain here first. Now look to the east. Now look to the east. The entire Jezreel Valley. The entire Jezreel Valley. The entire agriculture of the kingdom in the north of Israel presented right in front of you. Right here. It makes perfect sense that you would have a conversation. Giving the wild trees the best opportunity to prove him wrong. Not giving him one excuse. Oh, well, you know, it was Sunday, you know, it's a Sabbath day, he's already sleeping. You know, no. Giving him and his enemies the best opportunity to prove him wrong. Guys, up here on top, you can see, of course, Nazareth, just come from the city on top of Galilee. I'm pointing using my stick. I'm going to use two hands so I don't lose it. Nazareth, directly in front of me. Nazareth, on top of the Galilean Ridge. The Galilee goes all the way to the north. All right? We have Mount Tabor directly behind it, that unique shaped hill. We have the city of Nain across the valley. The entire Jezreel Valley directly in front of you. You guys remember those jets flying around earlier? Yeah. Guys, there is an underground airport, or a hangar, I guess, underneath Nazareth, in the mountain. All right, those jets suddenly take off from underground like a ship, like a aircraft carrier. Thank you. Like an aircraft carrier. They're launched from under the ground. The doors open and they just fly out. All right, and they fly around up here. Okay, and it's a hangar. It's underground to protect it, because not too far away from the north we have Hezbollah with sophisticated rockets. So you can imagine they would want to target our Air Force area, okay, to knock out our air superiority. So, but you can see the landing strip here, though. It's above ground. You guys can see the landing strip right here in the middle of the Jezreel Valley. This area has never been used for agriculture. That's why there's an airport there, because the middle of the Jezreel Valley in the middle of winter actually gets quite swampy.
Well, it's a little hazy.
Yeah, so guys, the first time I was here, this was clear, a little bit clearer than it is now, but this is pretty rare, right? So to be able to see from up here, usually there's a haze and you can't see very far. To be able to see this,
What a special day as the sun rises over the Sea of Galilee, and we are right here to experience it. More miracles happened here. The seas were stopped. Jesus walked upon these waters. Those are the ships that we'll be on today. Truly takes your breath away. You see the snow-capped mountains over there, where they got to see snow, and your heart of crimson has turned white as snow. Those are the mountains that they knew what snow was. And the narrator did a much better job of that yesterday than what I just explained. We're here at the hotel, about to go on yet another pilgrimage today.
Sea of Galilee. Alright, guys, look to your right. Could you guys, I'm sure everyone watched the sunrise over the Golan Heights this morning in the breakfast room, right? It's around 6:20 this morning. Alright, if you were facing the sea at breakfast, suddenly a burst of light entered your eyes. Alright, that's the direction I was sitting at least. Very, very beautiful. This is the Sea of Galilee. Our first stop this morning will be at a nice, wonderful amphitheater outside, where we'll meet the other buses together. Guys, look out into the horizon. You can see Mount Hermon covered with snow. That is our destination this morning, all the way to the base of Mount Hermon, where we'll grab our snowboards and take the gondola to the top to ski down. You guys ready for that? Yeah! All right. Actually, the visibility today is amazing. Quite amazing. Oftentimes you can't even see Mount Hermon at all because of the haze, which you guys have noticed already, that we do have a haze which begins to settle out throughout the afternoon. But that's our destination this morning, all the way to Mount Hermon, so I expect it to be quite chilly and even windy today. I don't expect it to be snowing. That's at the top of Mount Hermon, but we will go to the base of Mount Hermon. All right, are we ready? Yeah! Before we head there, though, we will stop here on the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. Guys, if you look at your maps, you'll notice that there are a series of sites located along the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, from Tiberias north and then around the top of the Sea of Galilee. So everything to our right on land. This area was where the ministry of Jesus took place, right here on the northern shores. Why in the northern shores? Why not on the eastern, or why not on the southern shore? We'll explain that tomorrow when we actually visit these sites around the Sea of Galilee. But remember, I gave you guys homework last night.
I've got an answer.
Well, we'll answer that question later, okay? Keep your answer to yourself. No ice creams yet, that's right.
Darn on the ice cream.
But someone among us yesterday, and I apologize, I've forgotten your name, had a really interesting observation. That here on the northern shores is important for two different industries. One, we have the fishing industry, of course, and then second, we have the Via Maris. Remember, the Via Maris descends down from the west all the way to the east. It leaves the area of the coastal plain, it makes its way through the mountain.
Those were hills. These are mountains. I wanted to see that under mountain. Yes. I just am so happy to know about it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see him either. But when you heard him, he took off while we were standing there. It's true. We just didn't see him just take off. What I'm saying is, he's going fast. He's going fast. He's up there, but you didn't see him run across that runway and come up. Just around. No, I didn't see him. I didn't see him. They were looking. I was waiting for that sign.
Guys, the Sea of Galilee, if you look at your maps or if you look at some signs of what the sea looks like, you tell me what object it looks like. I'll give you a hint. A musical instrument. A harp. That's right. The Sea of Galilee looks like a harp. Actually, the Hebrew name for the Sea of Galilee is Kinneret. Kinneret. It's actually, it doesn't say sea. Alright, why do we call this a sea in English? You know, but in Hebrew, it's called Kinneret. Before 2011, the Sea of Galilee has been our nation's source of drinking water, so it's fresh water. This is our drinking water for the entire country, all the way until 2011. In 2011, we established 5 desalination plants along the Mediterranean coast, which uses a lot of energy to take the salt out and to make clean drinking water. And the reason why we were doing this is because we were drinking so much of the Sea of Galilee, it was becoming salty. The salt from the earth was actually seeping into the Sea of Galilee. We're taking so much out of it that the sea was turning into a salty body of water. And we had to do something. We had to change our method. And what we decided to do was necessity. Was out of necessity. Despite the cost of energy, we are now operating 5 desalination plants and stopped drinking the Sea of Galilee. In addition to that, in the 1950s, we placed a dam at the southern end of the Sea of Galilee, preventing the water from exiting back into the Jordan River down to the Dead Sea, because the Dead Sea is the saltiest body of water, roughly 34% salt. We didn't want our drinking water to become salty. So over the last 2 years, some of you may have realized that the level of the Sea of Galilee has risen over 30 feet vertically.
Back to the bus.
this, he might have even held one up, and he said, you know, if my Father can clothe these valleys and these hills in such a beautiful way, don't worry, he will meet your needs. And then he said this, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided for you. Isn't that a wonderful thought? After Brian plays the shofar to call us to worship, our first hymn this morning is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Would you find that? It's number 52, page 52. Your song. This is actually a prayer, is it not? We're saying, Lord, you are the fount. Come Thou Fount of every blessing to my heart to sing thy praise. But first we'll be called to worship.
Same for everyone in our village, the nature of our business, because you can't store fish in barns. And Bethsaida is a fishing village. In fact, Bethsaida means house of fishing. And my father and his father before him were fishermen. They would go out early in the evening, sometimes stay out all night, fishing. They come back early in the morning, sell the fish in the market, clean the net, mend the nets, get a little rest, get a little food, go out the next evening to fish. Fishing was our life. No, fishing was his life. I wanted more. Even as a boy, I wanted to be a great man. I hated the smell of fish. I hated mending my father's nets. I hated Bethsaida. I wanted out. I wanted more. Finally, my father said, he put down his net, he looked at me, he said, Elisha, what more do you want? I mean, the Lord gives us food in our belly, clothes on our back, roof over our head, what more? I got my courage together, I said, I want to be a great man, Abba. I don't have to be rich. Although that wouldn't be so bad, come to think of it. But someday I want to be able to show my children a great man, like Prophet Moses, or like great Prophet Elisha. And my father, oh, he laughed, he rolled his eyes, he said, God chooses his prophet son, they don't choose him. Still, my father had named me after great Prophet Elisha. Maybe God would call me one day, huh? There was a small hill just outside of Bethsaida where I used to go and play as a boy. And there I would pretend to be great Prophet Elisha. You know, standing right next to Prophet Elijah, surrounded by horses of fire, chariots of flame. Oh, I could raise the dead. I could strike people blind. I could cause accents to float. I could purify poisoned wells. I could feed 100 prophets with just 20 loaves of bread. I could be great. One day, some of my friends came running up the hill to me where I was. Finally, he goes up on the hillside and he sits down. He begins to talk and tell us stories, and we laughed until we cried. It was so funny. And then he got serious. And he told me some of my listen to me. Told me. That's what it was like when you were with Jesus. You felt like you were the only one he was talking to. He told us some of my favorite stories. Stories of Prophet Moses. How he led the children of Israel out to a deserted place like this, except for the grass, you know. And it was then that I heard it. My stomach rumbled. And I looked up. Oh, I couldn't believe it. It was late afternoon. I'd totally forgotten about my lunch. I was so interested in hearing what Jesus had to say. I didn't want to unwrap it now. I was afraid somebody would take it from me. I was suddenly so hungry. I saw some of the followers of Jesus go up to him and say, hey, listen, you need to send them back into town, you know, so they have time to get there before it gets dark, so they got something to eat. You know what Jesus said? He said, you feed them. I looked around. I didn't see any carts loaded with food. Huh? And Philip said to him, it would take more than 200 silver coins just to buy enough bread to feed us. That's 8 months' wages. You know what Jesus said? How much bread do you have? Go and see. And when Jesus said, how much bread do you have? Go and see. I swear, he looked right at me. I couldn't talk. I looked down. I didn't have enough to feed myself, much less of it. So I kind of looked up a little bit and I saw the feet of the disciples, you know, scurrying into the crowd, and I saw Andrew. I recognized him. He comes over, he stands right in front of me, looking over my head at the thousands of people sitting behind me. I don't know what came over me, but for some reason, I just held up my bundle. See, I see that hand, he said. Grabs me by the wrist, unpacks my little lunch, counting along the way, takes me over to Jesus. 5 loaves, 2 fish, he tells to Jesus, ties my little lunch up, gives it back to me. And I hand it up to Jesus. He winked at me. and then he tells his disciples, have a sit down, you know, in 50s and 100s, which we did. We all sat there. And I look at him, and he looks up to heaven, and he thanks God for this. Nothing. And I think back to great prophet Elisha, and how he fed 100 prophets with just 20 loaves of bread. But there had to be, 13, 14,000 people here, including all the women and the children. And we all ate. And we were satisfied. Because Jesus made what I had given him a little bit more than I had given. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of leftovers. 12. One for every year of my life. Jesus did call me that day. Not to be a great prophet, but to give him the little bit that I had and watch him make it great. So, I live in Bethsaida, and I
was fresh and new. They were among this multitude, however large. And unlike preachers today, where we gather and he comes to us with his message, Jesus walked away from the multitude. Maybe you've never noticed that. He saw the multitude and then he went up on the mount. He walked away from them, so they followed him. Now, a word about the mount. Somewhere in this area is a sloping hillside that has come to be known as the Mount of Beatitudes. We don't know which one. But don't think of a mount like Colorado. Think of a mount like Texas, where the highest point is the overpass of the tollway. The entire sermon he delivered while sitting. Not uncommon. Rabbis taught while sitting. Rarely did they stand to address their congregations. And he sits down and it's like he's a magnet. They came to him. So they worked their way up this hill, and I'm sure, like he, they sat down, not knowing what to expect. They had never read Matthew 5, so they didn't know what was coming. They just sat down to be with one that they were learning to admire, respect, and follow. Opening his mouth, he began to teach them. He didn't preach at them. You know the difference. He taught them. He took truth and broke it down so that anybody could understand it. No one was ever better at that than Jesus. He, the Son of God, who could have absolutely blown away any theologian of that day or this one, spoke to people who weren't theologians. They weren't graduates of a Bible school. They were ordinary folks like us. And in case you wonder how effective, go to the very end of his sermon. I love this, verse 28 of chapter 7. The result was, that means the result of the sermon he preached or taught. The result of what he said was that when Jesus had finished these words, they were amazed. They were amazed. Simple people like us aren't easily amazed unless it's worth noting. He was worth hearing. They'd spent their years listening to the droning, monotonous teaching, words of scholars and rabbis.
All the way to Damascus. Since 1967, the area of the territory of the Golan Heights has been within Israeli hands for security reasons, to prevent Syria from attempting to conquer Israel or to cut off our water supply. By the mid-1980s, Israel decided to officially annex the Golan Heights into Israel, to make it a part of the state of Israel. Most recently, last year, President Donald Trump acknowledged Israel's right and existence over the Golan Heights. This is the first international country to recognize that. Prior, during the Obama administration, President Obama's attempt to negotiate a peace agreement between Israel and Syria to convince Israel to give back the Golan Heights to Syria. And ladies and gentlemen, I know for many of us it sounds ridiculous, but even more ridiculous was what was going on in Syria at the time that Obama was trying to get Israel to give it back. Remember that the power of Syria right now is the Assad regime. And there's been a civil war in Syria since 2011. And of course, the rise of a new terror organization called ISIS, which is predominantly within northwestern Syria, right on the border with the Golan Heights. So we're very fortunate that we didn't give back the Golan Heights, because the Golan Heights today acts as a buffer zone between the rest of Israel and the terror which is occurring in Syria today. Within the last year, you've probably realized on the news, Israel is striking many Iranian outposts, not uranium, Iranian National Guard outposts, which have infiltrated within Syria. So we have Iran in Syria, we have ISIS in Syria, we have Turkey in Syria, we have Russia in Syria, and we have Syria in Syria. We have a lot of entities in Syria, which means, why am I telling you this? It means that Syria is no man's land, or the demilitarized zone. No army is allowed to be within that area, and it is mostly littered with landmines. We're going to an outlook in just a moment. We'll be getting off the bus. We're going to look out over into Syria, and we'll see the road, the path to Damascus. The road into Damascus. Please bring with you your whispers. We don't need anything else. We're just getting off the bus. We're going to stand right outside the bus for a few moments. We're going to talk there as a group, and then we're going to get back on the bus and move to our next site. We won't be walking around here, okay?
Damascus is right across those hills.
Okay? And this building.
Guys, in a few moments we'll be getting off the bus. Bring with you your whispers. Guys, we will only stop at the bathrooms when your eyes turn yellow. Sorry?
Our eyes are yellow.
Oh boy, Jonas. Is it common for babies born in America to have jaundice at birth?
Yes.
30s and 40s, people who are young singles in their 20s and 30s were immigrating here alone. And they were for our country. So when people got off the boats in Jaffa and Haifa in the north, the immigrant absorption minister there was a private institution, that was not Britain. Both of my boys had jaundice, yeah. Put them in the sun. Is it? Well, natural sunlight cures everything. Guys, Lebanon was actually our quietest border until the 1980s. In fact, many of the farmers here in Israel will tell you personally, they used to cross into southern Lebanon freely. And they would drink coffee with their Lebanese friends. They would eat knafe, falafel, hummus. Until Hezbollah infiltrated southern Lebanon, and that's why we went to war in southern Lebanon in the 1980s. Okay? They used to share technology, food, produce, farm the same produce, sell the produce here in Israel. We always believed that we would have peace with Lebanon before any other country. But until Hezbollah infiltrated this quiet area, now it's one of our most dangerous borders, as they are financed by Iran today. Guys, you can see these people here on the right, looking out over the water, which is flowing down from Mount Hermon into the riverbed, making its way down into the Jordan River. They're all very excited. They're all very excited to be here, to see this water flowing. Of course, we see our wonderful olive trees, and of course the almond blossoms. You guys see the quarry straight ahead, soon to be on the left, the quarry on the base of the mountain. This is an area where we cut stone. Alright, so that green mountainous hill, the Galilee, that's within Israel. On the other side you see a small white road, and that's Lebanon. Everything north of that road is Lebanon, to the right. We'll pass by it later on. Who do you say that I am? Why does Jesus take his disciples away from their comfort zone all the way here to a city known as Caesarea Philippi. And it wasn't to visit the cows. What a miracle. We're so blessed. Look at this. All of this is going into the Sea of Galilee. All of it. It's all, that water, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't come from a
So they said there was an earthquake. Did you hear him say that? There was an earthquake here and sealed off you could go down to the caverns.
Really?
Best you can
That's
do.
where they
Yeah.
did the sacrifices and all that. Crazy.
Here in Tulsa, the only thing you have to quote is the Old Testament, right?
Right.
So you're going to make your case, you're going to build your argument based on it. Now,
Are you sure?
Hold us down.
Okay. If y'all know where we're going down, to the right, I'll follow you.
this is such a hub of activity in the day.
Sorry.
That's my husband again. Probably behind me. Oh, there he is.
Around in front of the bus, soon to be on the right. This is the only road in and out of the city of Rajar. It's spelled with a GH because in Arabic GH means an R. Alright? So this is the city of Rajar. This is the road that will actually take people to that village you see on the right. You guys can see that? Alright, so everything to our right, ladies and gentlemen, is Lebanon. Southern Lebanon. Alright? For the most part, this area is controlled by Hezbollah. Guys, we're going to Tel Dan. Tel Dan, the archaeological site of Tel Dan. It is a nature reserve, so we'll see lots of plants and water flowing. It's a very beautiful site. And then we will actually visit the archaeological site itself. Alright, so I expect us to be here for a little over an hour, as I said before. please keep that in mind. Guys, it is high noon and it's getting hot. So please drink lots of water. Please drink lots of water. After the Tel Dan site.
We're looking at the walled city of Dan, where the Israelites lived. So after Dan moves here, they will actually conquer the city of Israel and refortify the city. Now we're looking at the fortifications of the city at the very end of the period of Dan, after the Israelites were conquered by the Assyrians. Alright, so this is what the walls of the city look like. So it's difficult to tell, but just like Megiddo, this is also a tell. We would have had slopes going this direction. Over time, those slopes had weathered away and it's flat here. Alright, on top of the stone walls, which would have been much higher, you would have had mud brick walls. Remember this at Megiddo yesterday? I was trying to describe it, but you couldn't see it. Stop and eat breakfast or lunch, or maybe sell their wool or their cheese, or buy food or something, rather than entering into the city. And you guys will see how difficult it must be for them to enter the city in just a few moments. Rather, the gatehouse serves a different purpose. It serves as that point that people don't have to pass. You imagine thousands of people standing outside, just talking, communicating, selling goods, like a market, going to a farmer's market. This is the function of the gatehouse. The elders of the city will pass judgment at the gatehouse. All right? They will sit here at the entrance of the gatehouse and leave. This is like going to the mall, right? Just go to hang out. Go to the gatehouse. The gatehouse, guys, something else that was found here within the gate. Bring it in. Go ahead, bring it in. Something else that was found here in the gatehouse. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking. A stone was found, just like what you're seeing. Face up. When they were excavating the site, they found writing. I mean, that's always a miracle when you're archaeologists. They found so much pottery, found garbage, found gold, which is also great. Fine, we're not treasure hunters at all. We're scientists, okay? When we find writing, it tells us something. Who they were, what time period they lived in. And on this writing, it said, exactly as I say it, the house of David. The lineage of David is no more. That's what it said. It said just like that. The house of David is no more. Which tells us two things. One, this city was conquered by an empire that was not of the house of David. And they put here in the gatehouse this stone to show their glory, how they have defeated the people who are living there. The second thing it tells us is that the Israelites came back. They reconquered the city, found this stone slab, and smashed it, and used it as pavement on the road. So people could walk over it. Guys, this is the first time outside the biblical context when we see right. The very since then we found 2 more. Just like it, Pontius Pilate, Caesarea. History, right?
For those.
Lebanon.
What? Oh, I know. Except they can't hear us.
That's right.
Yeah. Found from Israel. Guys, bring it in, bring it in. Let's get another group coming in. You can actually see a stainless steel object in the center of where you can down at. This is obviously recreated to give us a depiction of what we believe is here based on archaeology. We have found the center of Dan, the cultic site. The northern tribes have decided to follow a different leader rather than the lineage of the house of David. And because of that, because of fear that the Israelite tribes will actually go to Jerusalem during the 3 feasts and start to follow the house of David again, the new king...
There is the Lebanon border. Got static going on.
The road's climbing up.
3,000-year-old gate house of Dan. The 3,000-year-old gate house of Dan. Before Dan came to Dan. Okay? So we'll call them Canaanites. We'll call them Canaanites. The umbrella term I like to use for the people living here before the conquest. And these Canaanites thought they knew how to create an arch out of mud. And if you look straight ahead, you see the oldest arched gatehouse in the world. Still standing today. But why is it still standing? And why does it look like it's filled in with mud? Well, these people were building mostly out of mud brick back then, and they quickly realized that mud dissolves with water. And the gatehouse was soon collapsing in on itself. So they filled it in with dirt, and they actually buried the entire gatehouse, therefore preserving it for us for the last few years. Okay? And they moved the gatehouse to where we saw the Israelite gatehouse. Does that make sense? Okay, guys? Today we call it the Abraham Gate for 2 reasons. The first reason, archaeologists' name was Abraham. And for the second reason, I'll remind you in the book of Genesis that Abraham, his nephew Lot, was kidnapped by the kings, and he is chasing them all the way to the area of Dan. He takes back his nephew Lot. Okay, what I want to point out to you that's actually really important is not the